When I picked up the phone to ask my son, Michael, what time the wedding would be, my daughter-in-law, Diana, looked me straight in the eye and said with a cold smile, "Oh, we got married yesterday. We only invited special people." Those words hit me like a bucket of ice water. I, the one who had paid $500 in rent every month for 3 years, who had bought every piece of furniture in their apartment, who had filled the fridge whenever they had nothing to eat, was not a special person. I stood frozen in my own living room, clutching the heavy phone, watching Michael avoid my gaze while Diana casually sat on the sofa I had bought for them. The pink dress I had picked for the wedding hung uselessly in the closet, next to the new shoes, and my excitement at being part of the most important day of my only son's life. I had spent $200 on that dress, imagining I'd look beautiful in the wedding photos I would never appear in. For weeks I had planned for that day. I had saved extra money to give them $1,000 as a wedding gift. I had called my sister in California to share the happy news. I had carefully cleaned my house from top to bottom, thinking maybe after the ceremony they would stop by to celebrate. And it all collapsed in a second with the words, "Only special people." Michael finally looked up and said in a voice that sounded rehearsed, "Mom, we just wanted to keep it simple. Just the two of us and a few witnesses." But I knew it was a lie. I had seen the pictures on social media. I saw Diana's parents proudly posing with the bride and groom. I saw her siblings raising champagne glasses. I saw Diana's white wedding dress, the dress I had helped pay for with the few $100s I had given her last month. I saw it all, except the moment that should have belonged to me. A week later, exactly 7 days after that humiliation, Diana called me. Her voice, no longer arrogant, but desperate. "Kelly, the rent is late. The landlord says if we don't pay this week, we'll be evicted. Maybe you forgot to transfer the money." Her voice trembled like her world was falling apart. I stayed silent, remembering all the times I had rushed to the bank, all the times I canceled my own plans just to make sure they had a roof over their heads, all the dinners of beans and rice I ate to save money, all so I could give them what they needed. And now, after cutting me out of the biggest day of their lives, Diana dared to call me like nothing had happened. "Diana," I said, my voice calmer than I expected, "do you remember that I only help special people?" The silence on the other end was so deep I could hear my own heartbeat. For the first time in years, it wasn't me trembling, it was her. "Kelly, I don't understand. We've always been special to you. You've been like a second mother to me." All lies. That sweet tone only appeared when she needed money. The same tone she had used to ask me for money for the wedding dress, for the honeymoon, even for the rings, all the things I helped pay for, only to never see them exchange those rings. For years I had walked on eggshells, choosing every word, every gesture, every gift carefully, just to receive scraps of affection from my own son. I had been the perfect mother, the indulgent mother-in-law, the silent provider who never complained about being invisible. But those 4 words, "only special people," woke up a part of me that had been asleep too long. I added up the money I had spent on them in the past 3 years. Rent, food, gifts, emergencies, even luxuries, more than $20,000, all drained from my pension, my savings, the money my late husband had left me to live out my old age in peace. And in return, I was treated as an outsider at my own son's wedding. That night after hanging up, I sat on my bed and cried, not tears of sadness, but tears of fury, of all the years of being disrespected, humiliated, and forced to stay silent. The next morning, I woke up and knew something had changed. I looked in the mirror and saw tired eyes and wrinkles carved by time, but this time there was a strange firmness in my gaze. I made coffee as usual, but I no longer thought about calling Michael, no longer waited for an apology. For the first time in so long, the first person I thought about was myself. I took out my checkbook, bank statements, and started adding things up. 3 years, $500 in rent every month, $18,000. Food about $200 a month, another $7,200. Holiday gifts at least $3,000. Diana's medical bills, $800. Car loan I paid off, $2,500. Air conditioner repair, a few hundred. The living room sofa, $1,200. Total, $33,400. I had thrown away $33,400, the savings of a lifetime, just to feed their ingratitude. When the phone rang and Michael's name appeared, I ignored it. For the first time, I didn't rush to answer. It rang again and again. I kept drinking my coffee. A little later, Diana called. I ignored that too. A message came from Michael. "Mom, pick up. We need to talk." I deleted it without replying. That afternoon I decided to go for a walk. Not to the bank to transfer money, not to the grocery store to buy their food, not to the pharmacy to get Diana's medicine. I walked simply because I wanted to. Passing through the park where I used to take Michael when he was little, I remembered that sweet boy once hugging me and saying, "Mom, you're the best mom in the world." When did he become a man who treated me like an ATM with feelings? When did I confuse love with money? When did I believe I had to buy my son's affection? I stopped in front of the bank where I had sent them money countless times. The manager, Mr. Carlos, saw me through the glass and waved. He had handled every one of my transactions for the past 3 years, watching my account shrink as I supported Michael and Diana. I walked in and said firmly, "Mr. Carlos, I want to cancel all automatic transfers, and I want to know how to protect my account so no one can touch my money again." He looked surprised and asked, "Mrs. Kelly, are you sure? Did something happen?" I answered, "Yes." I finally opened my eyes. While he worked on it, my phone rang nonstop. Michael, then Diana, then Michael again. They must have sensed their money supply drying up. I turned my phone off completely. "Mr. Carlos handed me the papers and said quietly, "Forgive me if I'm speaking out of turn, but I've seen how generous you've been for years. I hope they haven't pressured you." His words choked me up. A stranger cared more for me than my own son. "No one pressured me, Mr. Carlos. I did it to myself, and now I've stopped." When I walked out of the bank, I felt an odd lightness, as if a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. For the first time in years, the money in my account was truly mine. I walked home, thinking about all the trips I hadn't taken, the friends I had stopped seeing, the hobbies I had abandoned, all to funnel every penny into my son and daughter-in-law's ungrateful lives. As I approached my house, I saw 3 cars parked out front, Michael's, Diana's, and an unfamiliar one. Through the window I saw figures moving inside my home. They had keys. I had trusted them with those keys, thinking one day they would take care of me. I took a deep breath and opened the door. The scene before me is something I'll never forget. Michael sat on the sofa, his head in his hands. Diana paced back and forth like a trapped animal, and an older man I had never seen before was rifling through my papers on the dining table. My papers. My life. And I knew this would be my first confrontation, me, Kelly, in a new chapter of my life. I stepped into the house and raised my voice, stronger than I expected. What's going on here? All three of them turned to look at me as if I were a stranger in my own home. Diana spoke first, her voice filled with the same desperate urgency I had heard over the phone. "Kelly, thank God you're back. We need to talk. This is Mr. Ramirez, the lawyer we consulted about your condition." "My condition?" I asked, my voice calm enough to surprise even me. "I'm perfectly fine." "What condition?" Michael looked up, his eyes once belonging to an innocent child, now filled only with financial panic. "Mom, we went to the bank and they told us you canceled all the transfers. Mr. Carlos also said you blocked our access to your accounts. We don't understand why you would do that." Mr. Ramirez, about 50 years old, dressed in a gray suit with a calculating smile, extended his hand. "Mrs. Kelly, I'm Fernando Ramirez, an attorney specializing in family law. Your children are worried about your mental health and asked me to evaluate the situation." I didn't shake his hand. Instead, I walked straight to the dining table, gathering all my private documents he had been rifling through. "These are my personal papers. You have no right to touch them." "Mom," Michael interrupted, using that patronizing tone he had perfected in recent years. "We're only worried about you. You've been acting strange lately. Cutting off money suddenly with no explanation, ignoring our calls. We think you may need professional help." Diana stepped closer, trying to take my hand with fake tenderness. "Kelly, sweetheart, you've been under so much stress. Maybe the loneliness is affecting you more than you realize. At your age, confusion is normal." The word confusion rang like an alarm bell. Now I understood. They hadn't brought a lawyer to help me, but to strip away my control over my finances. "I am not confused," I replied firmly, my voice so steady it froze the entire room. "I'm clearer than I've ever been. And now, all of you will leave my house immediately." Ramirez spoke in that false, reasonable tone. "Mrs. Kelly, I understand you feel pressured, but your children have the legal right to intervene if they believe your ability to manage finances is compromised. They've documented concerning behaviors." A harsh laugh escaped me. "Concerning behaviors? You mean deciding to keep my own money? You mean refusing to bankroll two adults who treat me like trash?" Diana flinched. "We've never disrespected you, your family. Everything you have will be ours one day anyway. We just want to settle things sooner." So that was it. In their minds, I was already dead. Nothing left but a walking bank account. "Out," I said, pointing to the door. Michael stood up, pouting like the 35-year-old child he was. "Mom, we can't just leave like this. There's the rent, the car payments, the credit card you co-signed. You can't just cut us off." "Can't I?" My voice rose louder than ever. "Who says I can't? For 36 years I've paid bills that weren't even in my name. I've filled the fridge in a home where I wasn't welcome. I've financed a life that had no place for me." Ramirez pulled out a folder and laid it on the table. "Mrs. Kelly, we've prepared documents that would allow Michael and Diana to manage your finances temporarily until you're more stable." I tossed the folder straight into the trash. "The only transfer happening here is you three walking out my door." Diana burst into tears, but I saw through them, not sadness, just frustration. "You can't do this. We've depended on you. We've made purchases, signed papers, because we knew you had our back. Based on my money," I shot back. "Not my love, not my joy, not my presence. And now, because I choose to spend my money on myself, suddenly I'm a confused old woman who needs guardianship? Ridiculous." Michael tried to soften his tone. "Mom, we were wrong. The wedding was a mistake. Diana was nervous. I was under pressure. We can fix this if you'll just be reasonable." "Reasonable? You mean keep paying for your lives while being treated like an outsider?" Ramirez gathered his papers, issuing a cold warning. "Mrs. Kelly, this isn't over. If you truly have mental health issues, the court can force you into guardianship." I looked him straight in the eye. "Mr. Ramirez, before you threaten a 69-year-old woman, do your homework. I've managed my finances flawlessly for 40 years. I raised a son alone after my husband died, maintained a home, worked until retirement, and until last week supported 2 fully grown freeloaders." Diana stopped crying, her eyes icy. "This isn't the end, Kelly. We have rights and we have lawyers." "Perfect," I replied. "Hire as many as you want. Just remember, with your own money, not mine." The 3 of them left, carrying the wounded pride of people not used to hearing the word no. Michael turned back, spitting venom. "You'll end up alone, Mom. No one will take care of you." I looked at my son, my voice heavy with sadness but clear as crystal. "Michael, I've been alone for a long time. The difference is, now it's by choice, not because you abandoned me." The door closed, leaving me standing in the quietest, most beautiful silence I had heard in years. That night I didn't sleep, not from regret, but from the adrenaline of reclaiming control over my life. I lay in bed planning each step like a general preparing for battle. If Michael and Diana wanted war, I'd fight, but with reason, not emotion. By 6 a.m., I was dressed and ready. First stop, the office of attorney Carlos Herrera, the man who had helped me draft my late husband's will. Unlike Ramirez, Herrera was known for his integrity and his work defending the rights of older adults. After hearing my story, he said gravely, "Mrs. Kelly, what your children did is called elder financial abuse. It's a federal crime. The fact that they entered your home without permission and went through your private papers is also illegal." His words both reassured and shook me. I wasn't paranoid. I was being abused. But it also meant the situation was more serious than I had thought. "We need to document everything," he continued. "Every transfer, every gift, every time they pressured you, and we need to update your will to protect your assets from future manipulation." For 3 hours, we reviewed every financial record. Mr. Herrera sighed when he saw the total. $33,400 in 3 years. This money could have let you live comfortably, travel, enjoy retirement. Instead, you funded the lives of 2 people who didn't respect you enough to include you in their wedding. I walked out of his office with a clear plan. 1. Change every lock on my house. 2. Install a full security camera system. 3. Open a new bank account at a different bank, completely out of their reach. And 4. Start living the life I had postponed for far too long. I headed to the hardware store I'd gone to for years. The owner, Mr. Raoul, looked at me and smiled. "Mrs. Kelly, another repair needed at your son's place?" I shook my head. "No, Mr. Raoul, this time it's for my own house. I need to replace all the locks, the best ones you've got." He looked surprised but didn't ask further. And I knew this was truly the beginning of a new Kelly. While I was choosing locks, my son, Kevin, walked in. He worked installing security systems, as if fate had arranged it. "Kevin," I said, "I also need surveillance cameras. The full system cost is not an issue." While they prepared for the installation the next day, I received a call from an unknown number. It was Diana. She had borrowed someone else's phone since I had blocked her after yesterday's confrontation. Kelly, it's Diana. Please don't hang up. We need to talk like civilized adults. Go ahead. Look, I understand you're upset about the wedding. It was a mistake. Michael and I talked, and we want to make it up to you. How about a special dinner to celebrate our marriage with you? We can do it at your place, cook together like we used to. The manipulation in her words was so obvious it almost made me laugh. Diana, how much rent do you owe? The silence on the other end was my answer. 2 months, 1,000 total. But that's not the only reason I called, Kelly. We really miss you. Do you miss me, or do you miss my money? I asked bluntly. Both, she admitted, surprisingly honest. Kelly, I won't lie. We do need your financial help, but we love you too. If I'm that important, I replied, why wasn't I important enough to be at the wedding? Why am I only important when you need money? When was the last time you called just to ask how I was doing? Silence. We both knew the answer. Never. Diana, I'll make this clear once and for all. For 3 years you've treated me like an ATM with feelings. You've used me, ignored me, humiliated me, and finally insulted me in the worst way possible. And now that the money is gone, suddenly you discover you love me. Kelly, please. There's no please. You made your choice when you decided I wasn't special enough to attend your wedding. Now I'm making mine. I hung up and turned off my phone completely. This was my day of freedom, and I wasn't going to let anyone disturb it. That afternoon, I went to the beauty salon, a place I hadn't visited in over a year. Appointment after appointment had been canceled because Michael or Diana had some emergency, or because the money I set aside for myself turned into relief funds for them. Mrs. Kelly, Cynthia, my favorite stylist, exclaimed, "What a surprise! I thought you'd forgotten about us." I didn't forget, Cynthia. I just forgot that I deserve care too. I got the full treatment, haircut, color, manicure, pedicure, skincare. For the first time in years, I spent money on myself without guilt. As Cynthia worked on my hair, she told me about her life, her kids, her dreams. It was refreshing to have a conversation that wasn't about Michael and Diana's demands. "You look amazing," Cynthia said when she finished. "But more than that, you look free." That's right, Cynthia. I just learned how to say no. When I got home, a strange car was parked in front. My heart sank, thinking Michael and Diana had returned. But as I got closer, I saw an older woman sitting on my steps. "Mrs. Kelly?" she asked as I stepped out of my car. "Yes, that's me. How can I help you?" "I'm Renata. I live next door. We've been neighbors for years but never had the chance to talk. Yesterday I heard loud voices in your house, and I was worried. Is everything okay?" Her genuine concern touched me deeply. A stranger cared more about me than my own son did. "Please come in, Renata. I'll make some coffee and tell you a story you won't believe." I told her everything. Renata listened quietly, nodding occasionally. When I finished, her eyes were wet with tears. "Kelly, you did the right thing. I went through something similar with my daughter 5 years ago. I also thought it was my duty to support her even as an adult. I believed that if I didn't give her money, she wouldn't love me. And what happened? I cut her off. At first it was awful. She threatened me, cried, tried to guilt-trip me. But 6 months later she called and sincerely apologized. Now we have a real relationship, based on love, not money. Her words gave me hope. Do you think Michael and Diana will ever understand? Maybe, maybe not. But that's not your responsibility anymore. Your responsibility now is to live your own life. That night, for the first time in 3 years, I slept without worrying about whether they had money for rent, food, or luxuries. I slept with plans for my future, and it was the most peaceful sleep I'd had in years. The next morning, Kevin and Mr. Raoul came to change the locks and install the security system. My phone rang non-stop from unknown numbers, Diana trying again from different phones. But now I had a new skill, ignoring them. "Mrs. Kelly," Kevin said when he finished, "this system guarantees complete safety. You can see who comes to your door from your phone, even when you're not home. And if someone breaks in, the police will be notified immediately." The irony wasn't lost on me. I had to install a security system to protect myself from my own son, but it no longer hurt like before. It was simply a necessary step to preserve my new peace. While they worked, I decided to call my sister, Diana, in Texas. We hadn't spoken in a long time, because every time we did, I only bragged about Michael and Diana and how much money I was giving them. "Kelly," Diana said in surprise. "How are you? It's been months since we talked." "I'm good, Diana. Better than good, actually. I'm calling to tell you I finally woke up." I told her everything. The secret wedding, the humiliation, the lawyer trick, my decision to cut them off. Diana listened silently, then replied, "Sister, this should have happened long ago. Every time I heard you brag about how much you gave them, it broke my heart. You acted like love could be bought with dollars." "What do you mean?" I asked. "Michael never spoke of you with affection. It was always, 'My mom helped me with this. My mom bought me that.' But never, 'I miss my mom. I love my mom.' And Diana, she only ever spoke in the future tense. When Kelly's gone, we'll remodel her house. When we inherit, we'll invest in this." As if they were just waiting for you to die to start living. Her words hit me like a bucket of cold water. To them, I was nothing more than a walking wallet. After the call, I sat in my kitchen reflecting on my life. 45 years of marriage to a man who truly loved me. 35 years raising a son alone after being widowed. And 3 foolish years of supporting 2 selfish adults. The doorbell rang. Thanks to my new cameras, I saw Renata holding a cup of hot coffee. "I thought you might need company after everything you shared yesterday," she smiled. We sat in my living room. Renata continued telling me about her daughter, the same lies Diana used. "You're like a second mother to me. We're special to you. Someday it will all be ours anyway." "Maybe they all read the same manipulation handbook," I joked half seriously. "Not officially, but it sure seems like it." Chapter 1. Make her feel indispensable. Chapter 2. Create constant financial crises. Chapter 3. If she resists, question her mental health. We both laughed, a bitter kind of laughter. In the afternoon, I did what I had postponed for years. I visited my husband's grave. The cemetery was peaceful, his tomb slightly covered in moss because I had neglected it for so long. I sat down on the grass and spoke as if he were still there. "Robert, my love, I think I lost my way. After you passed, I poured everything into Michael, trying to be the perfect mother to make up for the father he didn't have. But in the process, I forgot myself. Our son has become someone I don't even recognize. And Diana, well, you already know. The money you left me, I used to keep them afloat. But now it's gone, my love. I've learned the lesson. I cleaned Robert's grave, replaced the wilted flowers with fresh ones, and sat there for another hour just to enjoy the calm. For the first time in years, I wasn't rushing home to deal with some crisis of Michael and Diana's. When I returned, 3 cars were already parked outside my house. My heart raced, But this time I was prepared. The cameras showed Michael, Diana, and two strangers. They were tense, pointing toward my house. I didn't get out of the car, but instead called Carlos, my lawyer. "Carlos, they're back at my house. And this time they brought others. What should I do?" "Stay in your car, Mrs. Kelly. I'm on my way, and I'll call the police. After our talk yesterday, I filed for a temporary restraining order. They're not allowed to be at your property." 15 minutes later, Carlos arrived along with 2 patrol cars. I watched the police speaking to Michael and Diana. My son angrily flailed his arms while Diana cried, but this time her tears meant nothing to me. One officer came to my car. "Ma'am, you can step out now. They'll be leaving." As I stepped out, Michael shouted from across the street, "Mom, this is ridiculous. We're your family." "You can't call the cops on your own son," I calmly answered. "Family doesn't threaten to take guardianship away. Family doesn't break into the house without permission. Family doesn't treat me like an ATM." Diana yelled back, "You'll have to pay for everything you still owe. There are bills under your name as guarantor. You can't just abandon us like this." Carlos stepped in. "Miss Diana, from now on all communication goes through my office, and I suggest you consult your own attorney before making threats about debts, because my client has full documentation proving that every expense in the past 3 years was voluntary." I watched them drive away, defeated but surely not done. Yet this time, I felt confident. I had my lawyer, I had Renata, my supportive neighbor, and most importantly, I had the clarity to know right from wrong. That evening, Renata invited me over for dinner. I met her daughter and for the first time in ages, saw what a healthy family looked like. They spoke with respect, cared sincerely, laughed freely. Her daughter never once mentioned money. "This is what I always wished for with Michael," I admitted to Renata. "Maybe you'll have it again someday," she smiled. "But first, he has to learn that you're a human being worthy of respect, not just a bank account." For the first time in weeks, I went to sleep with hope. The following days passed with an unusual peace. The cameras showed Michael and Diana still circling the house, sometimes stopping for a few minutes. They seemed to be waiting, plotting their next move. Carlos advised me to record the exact times of every appearance. "Their persistence will help us," he said. "Each violation of the order strengthens our case for a permanent protective order." One Friday morning, as I was having breakfast, the doorbell rang. The camera revealed a young woman, neatly dressed, holding a folder, smiling professionally. I opened the door. "Good morning, Mrs. Kelly," she said. "I'm a social worker with the Department of Elder Services. We received a report that you may be at risk and need a welfare assessment." My blood went cold. Michael and Diana had escalated. It was no longer just private lawyers. Now they dragged the authorities in. "Let me see your credentials," I said, keeping calm. She showed me valid ID. "I'm Raquel Mendez. May I come in?" I knew refusing would look bad, so I let her in. She sat in the living room, opening her folder. "Mrs. Kelly, we received a report that you've made unusual financial decisions, cut ties with family, installed unnecessary security systems, and rejected medical and legal help from relatives." Every word sounded rehearsed to paint me as a paranoid old woman. I instantly recognized Diana's fingerprints. "Miss Raquel," I said as evenly as I could, "I want to call my lawyer before answering any questions." "Ma'am, this isn't a legal interrogation, just an assessment. If you have nothing to hide then—" That phrase, "if you have nothing to hide," made my blood boil. It was the same logic abusers always used. You can wait or come back later. I won't say anything without my lawyer present. I called Carlos. 20 minutes later he arrived. After checking her documents, he said sharply, "Miss Mendez, I hope you have a court order because my client has legal representation. Any evaluation without a court mandate is harassment," Raquel faltered, replying softly, "We received reports from family concerned about her." "Family?" Carlos pressed. "The same family that forced her to sign over power of attorney, that broke into her home and rifled through her personal papers? The kind of family that excluded their mother from her own son's wedding while living off her money?" He set a thick folder on the table. "This is documented evidence of financial and emotional abuse, more than $33,400 in 3 years. If there's an investigation to be made, it should be into them." Raquel flipped through the file, her face growing more uneasy. "Mrs. Kelly," she finally asked, "why did you suddenly stop supporting your son?" "Because I realized they ran her. Only saw me as a walking wallet. I was tired of feeding 2 grown adults who disrespected me." "But don't you think that's a family responsibility?" "My responsibility ended when I raised my son to adulthood, gave him tools to live independently. Michael is 35, married, perfectly capable of supporting himself. Supporting him was a choice, and I chose to stop." Carlos interjected, "Miss Mendez, do you think it's normal for a 35-year-old man to depend on his 69-year-old mother for rent?" Raquel fell silent, then asked, "Do you manage your own finances?" "Completely. I can show you my bank records, taxes, investments. Everything is transparent. I drive myself, take care of myself, socialize with neighbors, and don't require medication for any illness." Carlos added, "My client just had a full health checkup. Results show she is entirely lucid and in excellent health." Raquel closed the folder and sighed. "Mrs. Kelly, based on what I've seen, I have no evidence that you're at risk or need intervention. I'll be closing this case." As she left, Carlos told me, "They won't stop, Kelly. We need to be ready for their next move." That afternoon, I called my sister Diana and told her everything. "Sister," she said, "what amazes me isn't how awful Michael and Diana are, but how strong you've become. A month ago, you might have broken. Now, you're standing firm. You're right. If this had happened before, I might have panicked, maybe even given in just to keep the peace, but not anymore." That evening, Renata came over with a bottle of wine. "Kelly, we need to celebrate. Today you stood firm against yet another attack, and you won. Each time you hold your ground, you grow stronger." We raised our glasses, toasting to newfound strength, to newfound freedom. I asked her, "Do you think I'll ever stop remembering Michael as the sweet little boy he once was?" "Probably not," she replied honestly. "But one day you'll stop letting that memory chain you to the selfish man he's become." Her words carried a deep wisdom. I could love the child he used to be without letting the man he is now keep destroying me. That night, I slept more soundly than I had in years. I knew that with every day passing, I was becoming stronger, more independent, more free. Michael and Diana could keep trying to manipulate me, threaten me, intimidate me, but their power over me was gone. My new life was only just beginning. 2 weeks passed with no word from Michael or Diana. I began to believe maybe they had finally accepted the truth. But on a Tuesday morning, as I was watering my garden, a strange car stopped right in front of my house. An older man in a suit and a young woman carrying a folder stepped out. My heart raced not with fear but with anger. How many more times would they try this? The man walked up to my door with a forced smile. "Mrs. Kelly Anderson?" I'm Dr. Ricardo Vega, a geriatric psychiatrist. This is my assistant, Patricia. Your family hired us to conduct a mental health evaluation. I stood in the garden, unmoving. I don't need any evaluation, and you're on private property without permission. Ma'am, Dr. Vega said, your son is very worried. He says you've had personality changes, irrational spending, and paranoid behavior. A simple evaluation could put all these concerns to rest. Patricia chimed in, her voice sweet. It's just a conversation, Mrs. Kelly. If you're as healthy as you say, the results will confirm it, and your family will feel reassured. I immediately recognized the tactic. It was exactly the kind Diana had used. If you have nothing to hide, then why be afraid? But I was no longer the naive woman I had been a month ago. Dr. Vega, I said firmly, I'm 69 years old and I've managed my life independently for decades. I'm not taking a psychiatric test just because my son is upset I stopped financing his lifestyle. Patricia tried to keep her soothing tone. But this is for your own good. I let out a bitter laugh. For my own good? For my own good was stopping rent payments for 2 adults who treated me like garbage. For my own good was installing cameras to protect myself from family members who broke in without permission. Just then, Carlos's car pulled up. The moment they saw him, Dr. Vega and Patricia exchanged uneasy glances. Carlos got out, his voice stern. Dr. Vega, do you have a court order? If not, you're violating the restraining order against my client's family. We're not family, Vega snapped back. We're medical professionals hired by her family. Hired by the family that's already banned from contact, Carlos replied coldly. What you're doing is called third-party harassment, and it's still illegal. Carlos called the police. Send a unit, please. 2 individuals are trespassing and violating my client's protective order. While we waited, Vega tried to justify himself. Mrs. Kelly, your son showed me concerning evidence unpaid medical bills, stockpiled medications, erratic spending. I cut him off. You were lied to. I don't have unpaid medical bills. I don't take any medication beyond vitamins, and my so-called erratic spending was choosing to stop throwing money at people who abused me, Patricia added. I know. Your family says you also threatened to disinherit them, that you changed your will without telling anyone. Of course I changed it, I shouted. Why would I leave my estate to people who cut their own mother out of her son's wedding? Why would I reward abuse with money? The police arrived, and Officer Johnson, already familiar with my case, stepped forward. Dr. Vega, you need to leave immediately. Mrs. Kelly has a valid protective order. We're just medical professionals, Vega protested. And you were sent here by people legally banned from contact, Carlos interrupted. That still counts as harassment. They left, but Patricia turned back, yelling, Your family only wants to help. Don't let them isolate you from the people who love you. People who love don't try to declare their mother insane to steal her money, I shouted after her. Later, Carlos and I sat down to plan. Kelly, this is getting out of control. Michael and Diana are spending money they don't even have to hire doctors and lawyers to try to declare you incompetent. They're desperate, I shuddered. What else can they do? They could petition the court for guardianship. It's rare to succeed, but if they find a sympathetic judge and a doctor willing to testify for them, you could lose control of your assets. The thought chilled me. My own son could legally strip me of my independence just to seize my money. That afternoon, I called my sister Diana and told her everything. She sighed. Do you see now? They're willing to burn the family down, trash their reputation, and spend everything on lawyers and doctors just to get access to your bank account. Her words struck me like lightning. Michael and Diana had shown their true faces. There was no room left for reconciliation. That night, Renata arrived with a surprise. She brought her gardening club friends over. They had all gone through something similar. Maria Elena had to cut off her brother who constantly borrowed money. Carmen ended ties with her daughter who only visited when she needed cash. Esperanza rewrote her will after discovering her grandchildren saw her as a retirement plan. What hurts me most, I confessed, isn't the money I lost, but realizing the love I thought I had never sell truly existed. Esperanza, now in her 80s, spoke gently. Real love can't be bought. If you had to pay for it, it was never real. Her words were a balm for my wounded soul. I realized I had been buying attention, not love. I've discovered something, I told my new friends. Being lonely around people who don't love you is worse than being alone. At least now, when I'm alone, I'm in good company. We laughed and raised our glasses together. That night, I sat in my garden, gazing at the stars. They seemed brighter than ever, or maybe my eyes had cleared. For the first time in my life, I was completely financially independent. No more carrying anyone else, no more obligations except to myself. And instead of frightening me, that truth thrilled me. I could travel, remodel my house, buy things for myself, donate to charity, or invest in my own future. Freedom carried the sweetness of hope. For the first time in years, I felt excited to plan for the future. 1 month after the incident with Dr. Vega, I thought I had won. Life felt peaceful again. I enjoyed slow breakfasts, tended to my garden, spent time with Renata and friends, and in the afternoons returned to painting the passion I had once abandoned. But on a Thursday morning, while I was painting flowers on my new easel, Carlos walked in with a heavy expression. Kelly, we need to talk. Michael and Diana just filed a petition in court to have you declared incompetent. They're asking the court to appoint a legal guardian. I froze. My worst fear had become reality. What does that mean, Carlos? If the judge believes you're no longer capable of managing your own affairs, they could assign Michael, giving him full control of your finances. I sank into my chair, feeling the deepest betrayal of my life. My own son was trying to strip away my right to control my life. Carlos, what evidence could they possibly have? You know perfectly. Well, I'm fully competent. They submitted testimony from 3 witnesses claiming they've seen you act erratically. They also included unpaid medical bills, stockpiled medication, and doctor. Vega's report that you refused a psychiatric exam, which they twisted into evidence of cognitive decline. The scheme was diabolical. They had turned my act of protecting myself into proof to take away my rights. Who are those 3 witnesses? Carlos flipped through the file. Diana, a neighbor named Jorge Herrera, and Eduardo Ruiz, your pharmacist. I frowned. Jorge had always been grumpy, but Eduardo, my trusted pharmacist, how could he have signed something like that? I need to see Eduardo, I said. Something isn't right. That afternoon, Carlos and I went to the pharmacy. Eduardo looked startled and uneasy. Hello, Mrs. Kelly, it's good to see you again. I looked him straight in the eye. Eduardo, they say you signed a statement claiming I behaved erratically with my medication. Is that true? Eduardo's face turned red as a ripe tomato. Mrs. Kelly, your daughter-in-law came by a few weeks ago asking about your medication. She said she was worried because you were acting strangely. I told her you only buy vitamins and occasionally aspirin, that you don't have any regular prescriptions. But she insisted that was proof you weren't taking proper care of your health. Carlos stepped in, "Eduardo, did you sign any papers?" She handed me a document saying it just confirmed that Mrs. Kelly had irregular medication purchases. I thought it was for health insurance. I didn't know it was evidence for a lawsuit. I was stunned my trusted pharmacist had been tricked into signing something he didn't fully understand. Diana's manipulation knew no limits. "Eduardo," I said, "I need you to write a new statement clearly explaining the truth and confirming that I've had no issues with medication." "Of course, Mrs. Kelly. I feel terrible about this misunderstanding." Afterward, we knocked on Jorge Herrera's door. He answered with hostility. Carlos asked, "Mr. Herrera, we understand you signed a statement about my client's behavior. Is that true?" "Yes, she's gone crazy. Acting very strange these past few weeks." "Can you be specific?" "She put up cameras like she's living in a war zone. She's had strangers coming in and out. And she yelled in the street at her family." I realized immediately he had twisted everything. The cameras were for my protection. The strangers were my new friends. The shouting was me defending my home from Michael and Diana. "Mr. Herrera," I said, "do you know why I installed those cameras?" "No, and I don't care." "To protect myself from my son and daughter-in-law who barged into my home and threatened me." "That's exactly what a crazy old woman would say," he sneered. There was no reasoning with him. His testimony was purely malicious. That night, Carlos and I sat down to plan our defense. "Kelly, we need an official psychiatric evaluation." "I know, doctor." "Elena Morales, one of the best specialists. She can confirm your condition." I trembled. What if Michael and Diana bribe the judge? What if they've already made up their mind? Then nothing we do will matter. Carlos reassured me. The system isn't perfect, but it's not entirely corrupt either. We have strong evidence of your mental competence and of their greed. We'll fight this all the way. The next day, I met Dr. Morales, a woman in her 50s with kind but sharp eyes. "Mrs. Kelly, I'll ask you some questions and run a few tests. Just answer honestly." For 2 hours, she tested my memory, reasoning skills, financial understanding, and emotional health. I even had to solve logic and math problems. Finally, she smiled. "Your results are well above average. You're not only competent, but your cognitive function is excellent." "Doctor, why would my family do this?" "Based on your records and what you've told me, this is a textbook case of elder financial abuse. Sadly, it happens more often than people realize." I left her office feeling both relieved and heartbroken. Relieved to have professional confirmation of my clarity. Heartbroken because it meant the legal battle was now very real. That afternoon, Renata gathered our gardening group. When they heard what happened, they were outraged. "Kelly," Maria Elena said, "we'll testify for you. We've seen with our own eyes you're perfectly fine." "Better than fine," Carmen added. "You're sharper and stronger than plenty of women in their 40s. Esperanza Wise at 80 took my hands. "My dear, this trick has been around for generations. Greedy children trying to declare their parents incompetent to steal their assets. But you're different. You have documentation, a lawyer, and friends who can testify. You have a strength many victims never had." Their words gave me strength. I was no longer alone. I had an army of strong women who had witnessed my transformation firsthand. "Do you know what the saddest part is?" I said, my voice trembling. "Michael and Diana are willing to destroy every chance of reconciliation just for money. Even if I wanted to forgive, now there's no going back." Cynthia sighed. "Maybe that's for the best. At least now you know exactly who they are, and you can act accordingly." That night, for the first time since this nightmare began, I truly cried. not out of sadness, but as a funeral for an illusion. I had forever lost the son I thought I had, and the hope of a real loving family. But in that grief, a new determination was born. I would never let anyone steal not just my money, but also my dignity and my freedom. The battle had officially begun, and I was ready to face it. 3 weeks later, the trial date arrived. I woke up early, put on my best black outfit, looked in the mirror, and saw a determination in my eyes I had never seen before. Today, the court would not just judge my competence. This was a trial for my dignity, for my right to live freely, for my value beyond a bank account. Carlos arrived at 7 a.m. to go over strategy. "Kelly, the burden of proof is on them. They have to prove you're incompetent. We only need to show the opposite." "What if the judge is biased?" I asked. "Judge Harrison is known for being fair. He's always defended the rights of the elderly." We arrived at the courthouse at 9 a.m. In the hallway, I saw Michael in a new suit, and Diana dressed in black as if for a funeral, perhaps the funeral of this family itself. Michael avoided my eyes. Diana stared directly, her gaze cold, as if this were just a business deal. Their lawyer was a seasoned man, confident, clearly experienced with cases like this. He began, "Your Honor, Mrs. Kelly Anderson has shown serious signs of mental decline. She cut off all financial support to her family without reasonable cause, installed a security system out of paranoia, and isolated herself from loved ones under the influence of neighbors and her attorney. Every word was chosen to twist my independence into dementia, my freedom into outside manipulation. Diana was the first. Witness. She cried like an actress, claiming I had completely changed, becoming hostile and distant from my loving family. "Your Honor," she sobbed. "Kelly was like a second mother to me. Seeing her mentally deteriorate has been heartbreaking. We only want her to get the care she needs." All lies. Carlos cross-examined. "Mrs. Diana, when was the last time you called Kelly without asking for pride? Money?" Diana hesitated. "We talk about many things. A specific date?" "I don't remember." "Is it true that you and your husband held a wedding without inviting Kelly?" "It was a small ceremony." "Is it true you told her, 'Only special people are invited'?" Diana's face flushed red. "That was misunderstood." "Then what's the proper context to tell your mother-in-law she's not special?" Diana fell silent. Then came Michael's turn. Watching him swear to tell the truth before lying about his own mother's mental state broke my heart. This was the child I had raised alone. "My mother has always been generous," Michael said, "but lately she's been acting strangely. We believe someone is taking advantage of her." Carlos asked, "Michael, over the last 3 years, how much money have you received from your mother?" "I don't remember exactly." "About $33,400, correct?" Michael stayed silent. "And in that time, how many times did you visit your mother without asking for money?" The silence hung heavy in the courtroom. "Is it true you and your wife entered your mother's home without permission and rifled through her private papers?" "We were worried about her." "Is it true you brought a lawyer to pressure her into signing over power of attorney?" "We just wanted to help her manage her money." "You're 35 years old. Do you still need your 69-year-old mother to pay your rent?" Michael lowered his head. Jorge Herrera testified, claiming I had been acting strangely. But under questioning, he admitted he had never spoken to me directly, only watched from a distance and made assumptions. Finally, Dr. Vega declared that my refusal to take his exam was proof of cognitive decline. Carlos immediately presented Dr. Morales's report, which completely contradicted him. Then it was our turn. Carlos called our first witness Eduardo, my longtime pharmacist. He explained how he had been tricked into signing a statement misrepresenting my medication purchases. Next, Dr. Morales testified, presenting the results of her cognitive tests and stating I was fully competent. Mr. Donald, the bank director, also testified, confirming that all my financial decisions, including canceling automatic transfers, were rational and that he had personally handled them. Renata and my gardening group described my clarity, new vitality, and healthy social life. Finally, it was my turn. I rose with the calm of a 69-year-old woman who had endured a lifetime of trials. Carlos let me tell my story. The $33,400 over 3 years, the humiliation of being excluded from my son's wedding, the emotional manipulation, the invasions of my privacy, and the legal threats. "Mrs. Kelly," Carlos asked, "why did you decide to cut financial support to your son and daughter-in-law?" I looked directly at the court. Because I finally realized what I was getting wasn't love. It was a transaction disguised as family. They wanted my money, but not me. "Do you regret your decision?" "I only regret not making it sooner." Michael's lawyer tried to rattle me during cross-examination, but I answered every question clearly and firmly. When he suggested my new friends were influencing me, I simply smiled and said, "For the first time in years, I have relationships built on respect, not financial interest." In closing arguments, their lawyer still insisted I was being manipulated, but Carlos countered sharply. "Your Honor, this is not the case of a senile old woman. This is the story of a woman who found the strength to escape years of financial and emotional abuse. The plaintiffs have offered no real medical evidence of incompetence. What they've shown is their frustration at losing their personal ATM." Judge Harrison went to deliberate. 2 hours passed, feeling like 2 years. When he returned, his voice was stern but clear. "This court finds that Mrs. Kelly Anderson is fully competent. Professional psychological evaluations confirm her soundness of mind. Her financial decisions, while inconvenient for her family, are rational and within her rights. Furthermore, the evidence suggests this case is driven by greed, not genuine concern. The petition for guardianship is denied in full." I had won not just in court, but in preserving my dignity and my freedom. Walking out, I saw Michael and Diana arguing with their lawyer. Diana glared at me, and Michael's face flickered with regret, but it was far too late. That evening, Renata hosted a small gathering with friends at my home. We raised our glasses to justice, to freedom, and to the sisterhood of women who protect one another. Esperanza said softly, "Today, you didn't just win a case, you took your life back." She was right. For the first time in years, I felt the future truly belonged to me. I could travel, learn to paint, volunteer, and live without the shadow of fear or the weight of guilt. 3 months later, I sold the old house and moved into a beautiful apartment near downtown. Half of the money I donated to an organization that protects seniors from domestic abuse. The other half I used to live the life I had always dreamed of, traveling through Europe, taking art classes, and serving as a volunteer. I no longer heard directly from Michael and Diana, only from others that they had to move into a smaller apartment, and that Diana, for the first time in years, was forced to work. Perhaps hardship would finally teach them what my generosity never could, the value of labor and independence. Sometimes, standing on my new balcony, gazing at the shining stars, I thought about the fragile woman I had been just a year ago, the one who believed she had to buy love. That woman was gone. In her place stood the woman I am today, someone who understands that true love has no price and freedom is always worth fighting for. My name is Kelly Anderson. I am 70 years old, and at last I have learned this. The most important person for me to love and protect is myself. Sometimes, the most painful part is not losing money, but realizing the affection you once trusted was only exploitation. Yet in that very moment, you learn a priceless lesson. True love cannot be bought, and respect must come from the heart, not the wallet. Looking back, perhaps each of us has faced a moment when we had to set boundaries with those dearest to us in order to protect ourselves. That is not selfishness, it is courage. Courage to choose genuine love over deception, freedom over captivity by guilt. And what about you? In a family, what do you think should never be traded away, money or love and respect? Share your thoughts below so we can reflect together, learn from one another, and draw lessons from our own experiences. And if you want to keep walking this path with me, listening to more heartfelt stories like this, don't forget to follow so you won't miss our next journey.